Good afternoon. The meeting will now come to order. Hello, I'm Steve Whistler, President of the Board of Education. I'd like to welcome you to the March 11th, 2006 board meeting. In keeping with the board's commitment to open communication with the community, this meeting is being streamed live on the CCPS website at www.carrollk12.org and broadcast live on Channel 21. We are also recording this meeting so that it can be accessed on demand on our website and broadcast throughout the month on Channel 21. Public participation will be held at approximately 5:15 p.m. following the reports section of the board meeting agenda. Speakers will be directed into the boardroom from the building lobby and are allotted 3 minutes to address the board. As a reminder, please silence all cell phones and other devices. Board members, please turn off your microphones when you are not speaking. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve? Oh, I'm sorry, we have opening exercise. Is there anything on there special for that?
No, that's what we just did.
No? Okay, great. May I have a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Battaglia, seconded by Dr. Dorsey. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now may I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 11th, 2026? So moved by Dr. Malvo,
I'll second.
seconded by Ms. Battaglia. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Now we will have our Carroll County Student Government Report. Mr. Mason, good to see you again, sir.
Hello, Mr. Dean.
Hi. Good afternoon, board members. Dr. McCabe, thank you so much for having me. My name is Mason Dean, a senior at Winters Mill High School and president of the Carroll County Student Government Association. Over the past month, CCSGA has remained actively engaged in leadership development, student advocacy, and preparation for upcoming statewide events. Last Wednesday, CCSGA held the student representative on the Board of Education general election video session right here at Central Office in the Charles I. Eichler boardroom. During this session, the candidates recorded their speeches and responses to a Q&A, which will be shared with students across the county to ensure they can hear directly from each candidate before voting. The general election will take place during the final week of March, when students across the county will select the next student representative to serve on the Board of Education. These are high school students. I forgot to mention that one. Last Thursday, a delegation of 13 CCSGA staff and other student leaders, including myself, attended the Maryland Association of Student Councils Advocacy Day in Annapolis. During the visit, students observed the Maryland Senate in session from the gallery, toured the Maryland State House and surrounding historical sites, and met with staff from the Carroll County Legislative Delegation to learn more about the legislative process and discuss the role students can play in civic advocacy. This experience provided valuable insight into how state policy is developed and reinforced the importance of informed student engagement in government. Looking ahead, nearly 40 students from across Carroll County will attend the Maryland Association of Student Councils annual convention from March 18th through the 20th. I will be attending alongside this delegation as we participate in workshops, leadership development sessions, and collaborative programming with student leaders from across the state. During the convention, elections will also be held for the next MASC Executive Board. Additionally, Lorena Wu was chosen by Governor Wes Moore and will serve as the state student member of the Board of Education in the upcoming school year. Earlier this month, CCSGA planned a meeting for this past Tuesday, not this past Tuesday, a week ago, but it was canceled due to the inclement weather. Despite this, our officers have continued coordinating virtually and preparing for upcoming statewide events and initiatives. The Carroll County Student Government Association remains committed to supporting student voice, leadership growth, and a strong community across the county. We look forward to continued collaboration and engagement throughout the remainder of the school year. Thank you all so much for your time today. Have a great evening and God bless.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to our board member activities and correspondence. Can we begin with our student member of the board who's joining us virtually this evening? Would you like to give your report first?
Hello. Of course. Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yep, we can hear you fine.
Oh, okay. Sorry, excuse the outside noise. I am currently at a FBLA state leadership conference, and so I competed. It was super fun. I'm gonna be here in Ocean City a couple days, but firstly, I would like to wish everybody a belated happy holidays to those who celebrate Chinese New Year, Ramadan, and Lent. I also hope everyone enjoyed the recent delayed openings and happy daylight saving time as well. And so, as Mr. Dean reiterated, I would like to say that on March 4th, I was at Central Office as a panelist with our president, Mr. Dean, for our student representative on the board, candidate speeches, and Q&A session. That was super fun. So the speeches are now available to watch on YouTube through the CCPS media website. So I encourage everyone to take some time to watch them. Congratulations to our finalists, Lauren Lucena and Brooklyn Ellis. Voting will take place later this month, so make sure to watch the video and vote. And then on March 5th, CCSJ held its Advocacy Day, where we traveled to Annapolis. We had the opportunity, as Mr. Dean said, to briefly observe the Senate floor in session and also meet with Delegate Chris Tomlinson, who represents the majority of Carroll County, to discuss student perspectives and education topics. So that was super interesting and a very fun educational opportunity for us. And lastly, CCSJ officer applications are out. I encourage everyone, all students who are interested in getting involved on a county level, to apply and ask your your SG advisor for the application. And as always, I'm always free to be contacted. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Now for our next speaker, I'd like to recognize Dr. Malvo.
Thank you. First off, March is Youth Art Month. This special month encourages support for quality school art programs and provides a special opportunity for us to feature the wonderful artwork created by our very talented students. Elementary and middle school student art is on display through March 21st at the Carroll Art Center in Westminster, and high school art is on display through March 27th in the Langdon Gallery at Carroll Community College. So here are some of the activities I have to report on for the month. On February the 12th, I attended the annual county budget update at Fairhaven in Sykesville, led by Ted Zaleski, Director of Management and Budget for Carroll County Government. Full details were given on the FY 2026 county budget, including pending priorities, revenue projections, and the future financial outlook. On February the 19th, I took part in the Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee, or CCAC, meeting. Group members divided into subcommittees to consider membership and governance, as well as recognition and awards. Please go ahead and visit the CCAC site online to see upcoming family support events, including the sensory-friendly egg hunt, the Kindergarten Here I Come program, and the Resource and Transition Fair. On February the 25th, I attended the CCEA and CASE local lobby night, in which I had really good insights and conversations with CCPS teachers and staff. I learned a great deal, and I want to share my appreciation for all of the teachers and staff members who took the time out of their evening to meet with me and the other board members. The evening of February the 25th, I attended the CCPS 11th Annual African American Read-In. Our high school students gave amazing readings and much more. The history and pride of African American talent was on full display, as a number of the poems read were original works, plus there were some great music acts. Congratulations, CCPS students, for properly honoring the works of African Americans. On March the 4th, I was a chaperone for Shiloh Middle School students and listened and watched them deliver a great performance at the 8th grade chorus festival adjudication that was held at Manchester Valley High School. Other strong performances that morning came from Oklahoma Road Middle School, Sykesville Middle School, and North Carroll Middle School. Great job, 8th graders. And on March the 6th, I also chaperoned Shiloh Middle School students for a career day at the Career and Tech Center. Our students learned a lot about the diverse program offerings. My particular group was introduced to Engineering 1, Cybersecurity Network, HVAC, and Geospatial and Drone Technology programs. Thank you, teachers and staff members, for adjusting your day to give us interactive lessons and presentations. By the end of the day, my son was particularly enthusiastic about getting involved with the Geospatial and Drone Technology program for his future. However, other students were just as excited about the other offerings. So thank you again. That is my monthly report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Malvo. Ms. Battaglia, you're recognized.
National Middle Level Education Month is observed in March. This is a time to recognize the importance of providing students in the middle grades with the support they need to succeed both academically and personally. The skills, habits, and values established during this time have a lifelong influence that directly impacts a student's chance for a successful and healthy future. Thank you to the administrators, teachers, and staff of our middle schools for all they do for our students. And just a brief thing real quick, on the 19th of February, I attended the CAC meeting here in the boardroom with Dr. McCabe, and she was our special guest to went over the budget, and there was a lot of good discussion that came from the members of CAC. It is such a great group. I mean, they really do represent our community schools very well. On February 25th, I attended the CCEA and Case Night, where I had some great conversations with our teachers and staff, and I thank you again for those opportunities to hear their perspectives on things that they're going through in the classrooms. And some upcoming events, I will be attending the Teacher of the Year Awards next week, and we have some various nonprofit organization events I'll be attending. And I also want to congratulate our FFA students for all that they accomplished in the competitions they held over at Career and the Technology Center. Those kids are actually just phenomenal with everything that they did between mechanics, public speaking. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all of our FFA students in our schools. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Zimmer.
March is Music in Our Schools Month, an opportunity for music teachers to bring their programs to the attention of the school and community and to display the benefits of school music benefits that school music brings to students of all ages. Our schools are beginning their spring vocal and instrumental concerts, and we encourage members of the community to come show their support and enjoy some great music. My board report is short and sweet this month. On Thursday, February 12th, I attended the Chamber of Commerce's County Budget Overview at ACTS Fairhaven. On February 20th and March 3rd, I participated in committee meetings for the Chamber of Commerce's Leadership Carroll Education Day. On Friday, March 6th, I attended CCPS's Curriculum Council meeting. On February 24th, I participated in a Title I focus group regarding student test-taking anxiety, and I also was sure to ask about parents' anxiety for their students' test-taking. And finally, I would like to apologize to CCEA and CASE for missing local lobby night due to illness, but I appreciate Ms. Jordan taking the time to share teacher feedback with me regarding Benchmark Advanced, which I will reference later this evening. So thank you for that.
And Dr. Dorsey.
Okay, thank you. March is also National Athletic Trainers Month, and we are proud to have Athletico Physical Therapy provide athletic trainers to all of our high schools. The certified athletic trainers are trained to meet the needs of all of our athletes. They work within the athletic departments with services including injury and illness prevention and wellness promotion, evaluation, assessment, and diagnosis, immediate and emergency care, therapeutic intervention, healthcare administration, and professional responsibility. So thanks to all these individuals for keeping our athletes healthy and safe. For my activities, on February 12th, I also attended the county budget update shared by Mr. Ted Zaleski. On the 13th, I attended the South Carroll High School Black Student Union's Black History Month potluck dinner, which was sponsored by the students. It was an engaging evening in which students shared a meal, games, displays, and conversations. And I certainly thank Ms. Hanley for supporting the students at South Carroll. February 17th, I attended a MABE legislative meeting. Key bills and regulations were discussed. On February 25th, I had the opportunity to meet with members of CCEA/CASE, and I listened as they shared their workload experiences. They were very professional as they focused on the topic. Later that evening, I also attended the CCPS 11th Annual African American Read-In at the Carroll Arts Center. Student performances certainly were stellar. I was very impressed by the confidence that students displayed as they shared their selected literature and music. The original works were so touching as students spoke from their hearts and expressed their lived experiences. Congratulations to all who participated, and thanks for sharing your voices. Thanks also to Laura Doolin, Coordinator of Secondary English, and the partners and supporters of this program. It was a beautiful evening. On February 27th, I attended a CCPS Equity Committee meeting. We were presented with ways that the schools celebrated the life and accomplishments of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and we also reviewed data related to the student survey. So thanks to Dr. Moore, staff, and community members for your work on this committee. On February 28th, I served as a judge at the Carroll County History Day and History Expo at Winters Mill High School. The research projects of middle and high school students were on display. Students' work focused on this year's theme, which was Revolution, Reaction, Reform in History. Students were well-versed and prepared. They did a wonderful job. There were many displays and exhibits from the community as well. Thanks to Ryan Melhorn for his work on making this a successful and meaningful day, and for all of those who worked with him. Thanks also to the teachers for preparing the students, and to all of the parents and partners. On March 2nd, I attended a MABE Legislative Committee meeting in which upcoming key bills and several proposed COMAR regulations were discussed. We are halfway through the legislative session, and crossover of bills will be on March 23rd. I will comment that there is a new tracker system for bills which is available to committee members, and it is quite user-friendly. You can locate the proposed bills and read key information concerning them. On March 5th, I attended the Multicultural Night at Mount Airy Middle School. Many thanks to the staff, students, and communities of Pars Ridge, Mount Airy Elementary, and Mount Airy Middle Schools for showcasing the various cultures represented in your schools. It's always a great evening filled with wonderful displays, music, dances, and we can't forget food. On March 6th, I attended the Curriculum Council meeting. Mr. Wernick gave an overview of Title IV and the initiatives associated with it, which are access to a well-rounded curriculum, safe and orderly environments, and technology. Students who were in attendance were able to share feedback on the programs they've experienced. I think they spoke on sources of strength and also robotics. We also received an introduction from the supervisors on the textbooks and instructional materials that we will be reviewing this year. This set the stage for our committee members to begin our task of reviewing the materials, and I know we'll be later looking at those in our meeting tonight. I always appreciate Mr. Wernick's planning and facilitation of the meeting. And finally, on March 9th, I had a meeting with our conference program committee planning group. It was the co-chair, MABE staff member, and myself. We planned for an upcoming meeting with members of the committee as we continue working on plans for this year's conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dorsey. As for me, first of all, welcome back to everybody. I know spring is in the air. I know I enjoyed the weather over the last couple of days. And it's just a nice reminder that summer's almost here. But for my board report, on February 20th, I participated in an awards ceremony with the Carroll County Board of Elections to recognize 3 of our students who created I Voted stickers for this year's election. Aaron Perrone, Jen Bartholo, and Mia Faber at the Board of Elections did a wonderful job working with our schools to encourage students to participate. I appreciated the fact that our educators actually put into their lessons this tie-in of this important civic duty. And as a result, 51 students submitted entries, and awards were given to Sophia Estrella, Samantha Kropp, and Grace Stein for the elementary, middle, and high school categories, respectively. So again, just a great way that our educators weave in, current events into our curriculum. So thank you for doing that, educators. On February 25th, I had the pleasure of meeting with over a dozen educators in our CASE and CCEA bargaining groups. I really do appreciate them sharing their concerns with me and my board colleagues. As a former educator myself, I truly understand their perspective, and I hope we can find ways to decrease their workload and at the same time improve student outcomes. Teacher burnout is real, and we need to do what we can to celebrate and retain our entire staff. On February 26th, I visited the Career and Technology Center to witness the first responder and military fair. Many thanks to our staff, our educators, and the groups that actually took time to come out to the Career and Tech Center to show our students about these career future opportunities. These opportunities help our students plan for their future, and I hope we can continue this meaningful event year after year. I think it was our second annual one, right? So let's keep it going. I really appreciate that. And on March 3rd, I participated in an audit committee meeting held here at Central Office. We welcomed a few new committee members, and we elected a new chair. I really do appreciate these parents volunteering their time and affording us with their professional expertise to ensure proper governance and oversight of our school system. And that is my board report. And so now I'll turn it over to Dr. McCabe.
Thank you. I'd like to begin this evening by congratulating Suniti Sunny Das and Hauyen Emma Zhu, seniors at Century High School, who have been selected as finalists in the National Merit Scholarship Program. Sunny is a standout student whose independence, empathy, and leadership have defined her high school career and has excelled in rigorous advanced placement courses while earning straight A's. In addition to playing a key role in Century's environmental club, Sunny authored a research paper on climate change and food insecurity in Malaysia for the World Food Prize and presented it at the Maryland Youth Institute as a designated Borlaug Scholar. She interned with both Northrop Grumman, gaining engineering experience, and Habitat for Humanity, where she has been especially supportive of peers with autism. Emma has exhibited exceptional academic performance and sustained excellence, leadership, and strong character throughout high school. She has completed the most rigorous courses available, as well as the college-level Calculus 3 course. Emma's passion for physics and problem-solving have led her to pursue aerospace engineering. She has earned the seal of biliteracy in Chinese Mandarin, demonstrating advanced proficiency in 2 languages and a strong sense of global awareness. She is captain of the Color Guard and section coordinator for the marching band and is a member of the Student Government Association and the Allies Club. Congratulations to Shannon Zepp, principal of West Middle School, for being selected as the 2026 Maryland Music Educators Association Outstanding School Administrator Award recipient. This award recognizes non-arts administrators who demonstrate exceptional advocacy and support for music education. Under Shannon's leadership, the music program at West Middle School has grown into a comprehensive and inclusive model, offering students multiple pathways for participation while maintaining high standards of instruction and performance. She consistently elevates the visibility of music within the school community, attends performances, and advocates for resources that strengthen program quality and student access. 3 of our gifted and talented students have been recognized by the Maryland State Advisory Council on Gifted and Talented Education for their achievements. Congratulations to Camden Zepp, an 8th grade student at West Middle School, who was awarded for outstanding student accomplishment in gifted and talented education. Gifted in reading and math, she is taking high school courses in Algebra 1 and Spanish 1. Camden is a 4-time Carson Scholar and a leader in the Sources of Strength program. She excels in the performing arts and serves as a team leader on both her competitive and performance dance teams, placing 9th in the nation for her solo performance. Aubrey Chrysler, an 8th grade student at North Carroll Middle School, received an honorable mention in Outstanding Student Accomplishment in Gifted and Talented Education. She has accelerated 2 years in mathematics and is enrolled in a countywide virtual honors geometry course. Aubrey is president of the Student Government Association, holds an elected countywide leadership position, and is a member of the Action in Middle Schools Committee for the Maryland Association of Student Councils. She also serves as a peer mentor in Sources of Strength. And finally, Addison Main, an 11th grade student at Winters Mill High School, received an honorable mention in Outstanding Student Accomplishment in Gifted and Talented Education. She began accelerated coursework as early as 7th grade through dual enrollment and entered high school having already completed high school level English, algebra, and Spanish. Addison completed 6 advanced placement courses and exams with an average score of 4.67 and is the first CCPS junior eligible for the AP Capstone Diploma. She is on track to earn 60 college credits and an associate's degree by the time she graduates and has been recognized as an AP Scholar with distinction with honors for outstanding academic achievement in a rural community. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move on to our presentations portion of the agenda. Dr. McCabe.
Tonight, we will be resuming our regular instructional presentations. Mr. Shockney will introduce a team who will provide us with an overview of our implementation of the new comprehensive reading program in grades 2 through 5, Benchmark Advance.
Good evening, board members. It's my pleasure to introduce several members from our team who's going to be presenting on our Benchmark Advanced Reading Program. We have Ms. Anne-Marie Bird, who's our Supervisor of Elementary Reading, Dr. Christy Farver, who is our Director of Elementary Schools, and Mr. Steve Warnick, who is our Director of Curriculum and Instruction. I'll turn things over to the team. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Today, my two colleagues and I will give an overview of the implementation of our new comprehensive reading program, Benchmark Advance, for students in grades 2 through 5. Our goal tonight is to deepen your understanding of this knowledge-building literacy program and how it supports strong readers and writers across our classrooms in those grades. I'll now turn it over to Dr. Farver to share the connection to our strategic plan.
Good evening. Okay. We know that by using benchmark education, we are providing a literacy program aligned to the Maryland literacy standards and what we know about the science of reading. We have had in place for approximately 20 years Foundations, which is a systematic and explicit phonics program in grades pre-K through 3rd grade. Benchmark education builds upon the foundational skills that the students have acquired, with including a rich vocabulary, background knowledge, comprehension, writing, and grammar instruction that begins in 2nd grade and continues to 5th grade. The organization of the units of benchmark education ensures a continuity in instruction by building on what students know and have learned in prior grades. So example, they would have a unit of study such as earth science, and earth science would be in 2nd grade. There would be an earth science unit in 3rd grade, earth science unit in 4th and 5th, building upon the skills that I just mentioned before. The benchmark assessment system allows teachers to give common writing, comprehension, grammar, and fluency assessments to identify and meet the needs of all of our learners in all areas of literacy. Okay.
You may be familiar with our Science of Reading research that was presented to us through Benchmark Education and the work of Hollis Scarborough and her reading group, which explains to anyone who's viewing it that skilled reading encompasses language comprehension as well as word recognition in all of those areas. And when one of the strands is missing, we have a frayed reader. So it's our role as literacy educators to make sure we're including all of those components, and Benchmark Education ensures us that all of those components are a part of the curriculum. So this work began 2 years ago. A committee reviewed multiple reading programs. We used high-quality instructional materials rubric from MSDE and selected Benchmark Education, Benchmark Advance, for its strong alignment with the science of reading, a comprehensive knowledge-building approach, which Dr. Farver mentioned, robust writing, grammar, and a vocabulary sequence, as well as an engaging and inclusive resources through all the grades, and a teacher-friendly design that also aligned with what teachers were familiar with. In 24-25, last spring, a group across grades 2 to 5 piloted a 3-week unit in Benchmark Education, Benchmark Advance. Teachers provided feedback, and the ELA team began professional learning and planning for implementation. Over this past summer, the curriculum was developed using those resources, creating timelines, sequences, selecting assessments, and beginning full implementation this year. So with any program, the first year, we were all about following Dr. McCabe's message: teach the curriculum, teach it with fidelity, and know the students in front of you and adjust as needed. All grades shared lots of successes, and those successes were that all teachers and students had the same resource and access to online, digital, and print resources. Our platform is called Benchmark Universe, is the digital program. Students are engaged regularly, daily, through collaborative conversations. That is a really huge component that supports our students and focusing on comprehension and vocabulary. There's daily grammar instruction in all the grades, as well as word study that is implemented in grades just 4 and 5, because we use foundations for the other grades. Every student has consumable texts that kind of look like a scholastic reader that have fold-outs for annotation and support writing and hands-on learning. Reading and writing instruction are also connected through regular response to those knowledge-building texts. Now I'll turn it over to Mr. Wernick.
Although we've seen great success, as with any new program, there are challenges. And so as we continue to transition to our new comprehensive reading series, and I call it the Cadillac series, it's important to remember that it takes time for not only our teachers, but also our students to learn the processes and procedures that this program has. Our teachers are doing an amazing job, and our students are just jumping right in and using the resources. However, we will continue to provide professional learning to our teachers during our countywide professional learning sessions and through our school-based PL sessions to support teachers in understanding the components of the series, and also when to streamline some of the components, as well as when to only use them for supplemental instruction. One of the areas that we're focusing on is really streamlining some of the units. There's actually 10 units, but the first 7 are really content-based, and the last 3 are really a review. And so what we're going to do is we're working with a team of teachers and reading specialists and Ms. Bird in looking at how can we streamline that for teachers so there's not as much for them content to share, and to embed some of those skills back into those 7 units and not the full 10. Benchmark Advance also provides a robust lesson structure, including deep comprehension, grammar, writing, and robust vocabulary throughout each lesson. But these skills are gradually taught across the elementary grades. And with us starting this year, it's going to take time to continue to develop those skills based on how the reading series is presented for our students to understand the process and for our teachers. The other piece is that teachers must be intentional in differentiating instruction to scaffold new skills and to build upon background knowledge that connects across the contents from one grade to the next grade. This really looks at Tier 1 instruction as we look at the science of reading, a larger block of Tier 1 instruction to provide those skills to our students using those resources, and then ensuring that our small group instruction is purposefully designed and utilized to provide interventions and enrichment, and not just to reteach skills that the students have already learned. It's really about differentiating that instruction within those small groups to capitalize on the students that either need to be intervened upon or enriched. And then finally, as we look into grades 4 and 5, we do not currently have the Steps to Advanced Comprehension Intervention program that supports the new reading series for those interventions. We do have interventions, but there's a program that really supports the Benchmark Advanced program, and we plan to purchase that supplemental purchase in the future. And so those have been some of our challenges. We'll continue to work through those, and then we'll continue to support our teachers as needed as we hear feedback.
So for next steps, as a county, we're going to continue to focus on the science of writing, and using the benchmark education system of assessments, we're going to analyze students' writing to differentiate instruction in all areas of writing, such as ideas, organization, clarity, and style. Our teachers are continuing to sign up and complete the MSDE provided professional learning on science of reading. These courses are still free, and they're going to give teachers an endorsement in the science of reading on their teaching licenses. We also provide multiple professional learning opportunities throughout the year for teachers to learn about how we are adjusting the instruction aligned to the science of reading. Because Benchmark Education is a new core reading program, it's important that we get teacher feedback to adjust how we are using the resources based on teacher feedback and the student needs. Ms. Bird regularly meets with a group of key teachers and stakeholders to improve upon what we're using, how we're using our benchmark education resources. The feedback that's being collected from the stakeholders will be used to provide clarity and make adjustments as we revise the benchmark education units in preparation for our upcoming 2026-2027 school year. And then with that, if you have any questions.
Ms. Zimmer.
Thank you so much. I had an opportunity to solicit some feedback, so I just have a couple comments first. The responses that I received reflected both positive observations and some areas where teachers feel like additional support might be helpful. Educators noted that the program includes strong resources, engaging texts, the useful student materials that allow students to annotate and interact directly with the reading. They also appreciate the way that reading and writing skills are connected within the units. At the same time, several teachers shared that the pacing and scope of the curriculum can be challenging within the current instructional time, while balancing other required programs and subject matter. So I heard that a lot, that there's not enough time to implement and get through the curriculum in any given block. Some also mentioned that additional training and implementation support could help teachers feel more confident using the program's components. Overall, the feedback suggested that the curriculum has promising elements, and with thoughtful adjustments to pacing, support, and alignment, it may become even more of an effective tool for both teachers and students. So based off that, I have a couple of questions, and you went over a lot of this, so I just want to drill down a little bit. What adjustments, if any, are being considered to help teachers manage the pacing of the curriculum within the ELA block?
Absolutely. As we shared, we're actually looking at streamlining from 10 units down to 7 throughout the year, which would actually give teachers more time in each unit to really dive a little bit deeper. And the reason that we're doing that is the last 3 units are really review units, and we feel that we can really dive deeper into the first 7 and not need those review units, or differentiate the instruction for certain students that may need it later on.
The differentiating, that piece of feedback came back time after time again, just that they were having difficulty with targeting students who might be falling behind, as well as those students who might be gifted. It's sort of like, unless they're in the main lane, the teachers aren't able to sort of address those things.
Absolutely, and that's what we've heard. We've received a lot of feedback. Mrs. Bird works closely with the reading specialists as well as the teachers. She has a committee that has teachers on it to receive feedback. They also have what they call a parking lot where they can provide feedback to her, and so that's what we're working on. As with any new program, it has bells and whistles, and so we're trying to use it all to see what really works, and then what can we then maybe not use as much or use supplementally to support instruction. So we do agree that there is a lot, and with any new program, there's a huge learning curve. But we feel, as we continue to grow within this program, as we continue to adjust instructions and listen to our teachers' needs and our students' needs, then we'll make it, the program that is Carroll County, as we did with our previous program.
Certainly. And there was feedback that we're only 6 or 7 months in, and understanding that this is a transition. So I think that is understood as well. One last question I had was, are there any plans to implement this curriculum for K through 2? Because what I heard was that there's a learning curve, that the curriculum assumes that the third grader knows some of the baseline stuff that we are not teaching in the foundations.
So we started with a 2nd through 5th grade, so all 2nd through 5th graders use it. So it's really kindergarten and 1st grade. And with our current Wonders program and our Foundations program that we currently use, as we embed them, it's really about the phonics and the phonemic awareness and the structure of reading and learning. And so as we look at that, eventually we'll shift, but we feel that we have a good program currently in place, and our students actually do well on assessments, so we didn't want to change too rapidly. We also are looking at, as you know, high quality instruction materials. And so Benchmark really was the intermediate group from 2nd through 5th had really high marks, but we want to make sure that we have the perfect program for our primary students. And so we didn't want to just gravitate to it too quickly until they really refine their primary process. So in the next couple of years, we are looking through it.
I understand. Thank you so much. The last just comment is that almost every teacher who provided feedback to me was looking for ongoing professional development within the subject area. And it sounds like, based off your presentation tonight, that's a top priority.
Absolutely. Both within the days that we have that are early dismissal days, and then our 3 days in August, and then October and March that are full days. Ms. Bird will be working with teachers to continuously adjust and provide professional learning just in time to make sure that they understand the curriculum and can teach it well.
So much.
Any other questions? Dr. Malvo?
Yeah, I have a question or two, actually. I went online and I looked at Benchmark Advance and, saw that there's a good deal of information, a lot of good resources that are available. In particular, they have lesson plans for each unit, but at the same time, talking to teachers, there's the concern that sometimes lesson plans change year to year, or having input into the lesson plans that they want. With these lesson plans that come each unit, are teachers able to share or put in their expertise within those plans, and how would that work?
Absolutely. So with any curriculum, we actually look at the lesson plans that they have developed and then write our own based on that. So we have teacher groups who write our lesson plans as well as our pacing guides based on our students. And I think, as you know, we've done pretty well over the years. We've always adjusted our instruction each summer to meet the needs of our teachers and provide feedback. Actually, our teacher teams who actually write our lesson plans, write our assessments, and so that we take their feedback and adjust, each year based on their needs. It may be a lesson or two that we adjust, it may be the assessments that we adjust, but we continuously adjust to ensure that our students are meeting the benchmarks that we need them to meet, but also that our teachers are receiving those lessons. But within each lesson, even though we teach it with fidelity, teachers have the autonomy to differentiate based on the needs of their students. They may need to provide a little bit more guidance or scaffolding, or they are able to move quickly through if their students obtain those skills quickly.
Okay, thank you. Another question I had for you is that I noticed also there are a lot of good interactive materials, videos, vocabulary lists, spelling tests, and so forth to reinforce student learning. with those, and it makes me think about laptops and the essentiality of laptops, whether we have that. Would you say that students, do they have access to these different interactive things, or is this more so within the classroom setting?
Sure. So the main components are actually hands-on take-home books. Okay, they're 3 to 5 pages for each unit or each story. Students can annotate and write in them. They actually write paragraphs in them. They can highlight, and so that's what they get to take home. The other pieces are supplemental instruction, technology pieces. And if it's a read aloud through the computer, the teacher has their teacher station that they can use. If they do need technology and the teacher wants to enhance that, we have carts that are available currently within our pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade, and second grade. So they can use carts, or our 3 through 5 currently do have computers that can assist in the writing process. Because what we find is that a lot of students, we go through the writing process on paper, but to formalize their writing, you need a computer because, it's how we use it through word processing. And so that's how we do it. So the technology is beneficial, but we always start with the paper copies and with handwriting, prior to using technology.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Dr. Dorsey?
Thanks, Mr. Wernick. I noticed, when we had our curriculum council meeting, I guess the one year where the material was being reviewed, again, a big plus was that the kids did have these consumable texts because, again, there's so much learning and so much that can be done as students are really interacting with the text as far as highlighting or note-taking or whatever else they're choosing, to include there. So I think that's a big plus. But I guess in line with that, how expensive is it to replace these consumable materials every year?
So we have a 7-year contract,
Okay.
and we were able to purchase that, and it was a similar contract with any other who would have anthologies or textbooks.
Okay.
It was very similar in cost. So, we have the 7 years, so we'll continue to use that. And in all reality, after about 7 years, you start to look for another program, possibly in the near future. So they have a life shelf of about 7 to 10 years in all reality.
Okay, and thanks for sharing that piece because I think that may have been brought up at that meeting as well. But again, it just sounds like as the teachers have more time to really use the materials, hopefully they will get their comfort levels, increased, and that can help them then as they're working with the students. As far as the last 3 units, you said that there were 10 units and those last 3 are review units, and that's the way it's set up across grade levels, right?
Correct.
So if you don't get to those last 3, does that really matter?
It doesn't, but what we want to make sure when we're looking at those skill units, that we're embedding some of those practice items within the normal 7 units.
Okay.
So you are correct, you don't have to get to them, but we want to take the best components of those units into practice when we're looking at those other 7 units that really teach the skills.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And I guess those could be used as well when the teacher's differentiating instruction, if she would have to go back and pull from some of those review units.
Absolutely.
So it sounds very positive, and again, I love the piece, how the kids can interact with the text. So thanks for sharing, all of you.
Ms. Zimmer?
Dr. Dorsey, just following up on your point, as the mother of 2 students who bring home the consumables, it's great for the parents too, because we can really go through those with our students, see what they're doing, and also to reinforce where there needs to be reinforcement. So I certainly can appreciate the consumables as well.
Ms. Patty, you have anything? I just have a couple of questions. One for me, can you describe for me whether or not this will present more requirements or obligations on educators for data collection, data analysis? Can you describe how much of an impact this might have?
Sure. No different than what we used with our previous reading series. We actually have less assessments, our benchmark assessments, and we do have unit assessments that teachers can use that are quick, that they're able to adjust their instruction. We do have a screener that is mandatory by Maryland State Department of Education, and that's been in place for several years. So all of our students have to be screened to ensure that we're meeting their needs in reading. But there really is not an additional assessment approach to this program compared to our previous program.
And I'll just add to that the later discussion that Mr. Shockney will lead in this meeting this evening will talk more about the state's new literacy policy and that policy's impact on teacher workload.
Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to discuss, this is a computer-based, in part, education program for our kids, right? I mean, how much work will they be doing on computers versus, or is this really just getting them into the books and reading textbooks and?
It really is all about the consumables.
Okay, good.
Consumables first.
Print.
Yeah, print.
Our students are engaging with print resources, print materials.
Good.
So the tech-based components of it are supplemental, correct? Okay.
Yeah, that's because I have a concern with data privacy. I'm really concerned about student data privacy and the digital footprints that our kids are leaving on devices and how where that data goes ultimately. So I appreciate that. I will tell you, if it involves more physically reading a piece of paper and writing, that's great, because I think that's where we need to go as a system. I think we do that already. I mean, we've been doing science reading in our county for a while. But I think that's one of the reasons why we perform so well year after year in our county compared to others. So thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
And with that, we will move on to our reports section of the agenda. School construction report, Dr. McCabe.
We are providing our standard monthly school construction report. Mr. Prokop is able to respond to any questions from the board.
Any questions on the school? Did you have a question, Dr. Malvo? Dr. Malvo, you're recognized.
Great, thank you. And looking at this report, I just wanted to make sure that the date was correct. There wasn't a typo with the fourth and final page, Northwest Middle School HVAC replacement to commence on June 15th, 2026, scheduled completion August 11th. Is 2028, is that the accurate year? Just wanted to make sure that it was going to be that length of time.
The intention is to start the well fields. It's a geothermal system is what we're proposing, and we would start the well fields this summer and then finish out next after that.
Great. That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Malvo. If I can get my act together here. Any other questions from my colleagues? All right, thank you so much. Next, we will move on to item 4B, our legislative report. Dr. McCabe.
We are nearing the home stretch of the legislative session with the crossover date around the corner on March 23rd. Mr. O'Neill has provided the list of bills being tracked by staff as well as by MABE and PZAM. We welcome any discussion or questions from the board.
Any questions from colleagues or comments?
I just have a question for Mr. Whistler and Dr. Dorsey. Are there specific bills that we are watching closely in the legislative committee? Are there any of note? Sorry, not to put you on the spot.
Not at all. You want to go first?
Well,
Dr. Dorsey?
I'll just share some of the more recent ones that we had up for discussion. Senate Bill 646, which is the public school system contracts, prohibited provisions. That's one we're looking at or discussing. I guess since it was going to be one of the next ones in line to come forward. Also, Senate Bill 685, local school systems, as far as response policy and all concerning sexual abuse and sexual misconduct. And there are several others. There's Senate Bill 810. If you just want to make note of these, then you can maybe check them off and go through. So the first one was Senate Bill 646, the next Senate Bill 685, the Senate Bill 810. The fourth one is House Bill 1074. The next one is House Bill 1368. And then the final one was House Bill 1492. Those were the last ones that were discussed because they were up for review soon.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, for me, I had a couple of concerns that I've been tracking and looking at. One is House Bill 288, which authorizes the state superintendent to declare a prolonged state of emergency that would prevent regular and in-person attendance for 14 days or more. Again, it just gives me a reminder of the COVID days when the state decided to step in and go a different way than what maybe a local education authority like ours wanted to do in bringing back our students early. So that is a bill which I argued with colleagues and other boards to oppose, but I think collectively may agreed to go ahead and let it go. Also, another concern that I had related to a bill, and I can't find it here off the top of my head, but it was a bill related to requiring local commissioners and county councils to increase their MOE and also tie it to inflation, which would, again, just, in my opinion, let costs just run away, at least potentially. So, again, I'm a big local control kind of person and believe that, what bill was that? Yeah, House Bill 562. Yeah, so the maintenance of effort inflation adjustment measure, again, I oppose that along with with probably 6 or 7 other counties, but again, we were outvoted, and our MABE Legislative Committee recommended to support that bill. But again, if that bill passes, it would put a lot more local costs on local governments, not just in Carroll, but local governments all across the state, and again, have huge impact on our costs far into the future. But those are just 2 of the bills that were on my mind.
And again, I'll just share that Mr. Whistler is our board's representative on that committee. I'm the alternate, but I like to sort of be in the know.
No, I think we're a great team. Yeah, we really are. But I will tell you, there's the public has no idea how much we are connected with these ongoing activities in Annapolis. One, to try to ensure we retain local control, ensure that we don't increase the burden on our school systems, our staffs, our educators. And so we don't just sit back and let it happen. We actually get engaged in the process. I see my former colleague, Miss Herbert, in the crowd, and I can tell you, Miss Herbert and I tag team on a lot of issues, going back at least 3 or 4 years. So this is one of the most active boards in the state with regards to tracking legislative issues at the state level. And so that's it. Any other questions from colleagues?
Thanks for pulling this together.
Yeah, so, and again, thank you, staff, for pulling this together. I really appreciate it. And Mr. O'Neill is another player, another team player of ours monitoring this from the staff. So thank you so much. For that, we will move on to public participation. And Dr. Dorsey, the floor is yours.
Okay, public participation. To have an orderly presentation of comments by the public, the following guidelines apply. Number 1, speakers with a connection to CCPS will be allowed to address the board for the allotted 3 minutes. Only those speakers that have registered online and have been notified by the communications department will be permitted to speak. Priority will be given to those citizens that are addressing the board about an item on the current agenda. Citizens not appearing in person for public comment can write to the board through email or U.S. mail. Next, public participation is not intended to be a question and answer session. However, if citizens have specific questions, the superintendent will assign a staff member to make contact during the board meeting to arrange a time to respond to questions. Next, the superintendent board reserve the right to correct misinformation presented as factual after the conclusion of the public participation period. Next, statements to the board should relate to the recent agenda items, an agenda item that is expected to appear in the future, or a matter of general policy over which the board has authority. Personnel matters, pending appeals, the actions or statements of individual staff, or items related to employee negotiations are not appropriate topics and may not be discussed. Next, the board has scheduled time on the agenda for public participation at approximately 5:15 p.m. The board reserves the right to limit the number of speakers on a particular topic so that all topics may be addressed. Additionally, the board retains the discretion to allow additional speakers as it deems appropriate. The board is allowing no more than an hour for public participation. Next, comments are limited to 3 minutes or less. All comments should be directed to the board members at the dais. Citizens may only address the board with their individual comments. Citizens may not stand in for another person or group and read their comments. When the allotted time expires, the speaker is permitted to complete a sentence. Citizens may leave any handouts for board members on the table at the back of the boardroom. Please do not approach the dais. Additionally, the public may not display signs or posters during the board meeting. In lieu of signs, or if you are unable to complete your comments in the allotted time, individuals are encouraged to submit remarks to the board in writing. And finally, those seated in the audience are asked to be respectful of the speaker and refrain from commenting to the speaker or to the board members. So with that, we are ready to hear from our speakers this evening. We will start with Aiden Spencer.
Good evening. My name is Aiden Spencer, and I'm a 15-year-old high school sophomore. I wanted to share my story as a past Carroll County public school student. When I was in kindergarten and first grade, my parents felt there was something uniquely difficult for me for reading and writing. They asked the school 3 times about learning disabilities and were told everything was fine. Finally, they found an educational specialist, and I was identified as dyslexic and dysgraphic. In my journey through public schools with learning disabilities, I've discovered there's a 3-part issue for students: identification, instruction, and accommodation. After discovering my learning differences, CCPS composed an IEP, but unfortunately it did not help with my area of need and focused more on accommodations than instructing material in the way I needed to learn. My parents paid for private Orton Gillingham and paragraphology from a structured literacy specialist, as Carroll County Public Schools had no one trained for either of these programs. Once I had finished all of the intervention and was above grade level, I started in middle school and was in all honors classes aside from ELA. Even after overcoming the hurdles of identification and adequate instruction by seeking private help, I still needed long-term accommodations. My 504 accommodations were not being uniformly instituted, and I had some wonderful teachers, but others who told me they did not believe in dyslexia. I had teachers who did not give me my extra time on a regular basis. I came home every day in tears, and I began to lose interest in activities that I enjoyed in the past. My parents were concerned and realized I was probably becoming depressed from my educational situation. At this point, I remember talking to my parents about a decision. Do we fight CCPS for what is right, or do I switch to private school that can meet my needs? I told my parents that I wanted to leave CCPS and go to Genesee. It was hard to leave my friends and drive over 45 minutes each way to school, but it has been worth it because now I am a college-bound student who has a 3.9 unweighted GPA. I'm standing here today in spite of Carroll County's education, not because of it. Public school systems are required to provide free and appropriate education. When I was a second grade student in CCPS, I could not consistently write my own name or read close to grade level. As someone whose IQ tested above average and gifted, it is clear I was not receiving appropriate instruction. I hope that you hear my story with an open mind and willingness to make changes. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Isaac Marble. Okay, we'll check a little bit later and see if Isaac comes in. Next, we will go to Lindsay Jensen.
Hello. My name is Lindsay Jensen. I'm a parent of 4 CCPS students. I'm heavily involved in our PTOs and previously taught middle school science for 10 years. I'd like to address the communication issues within the school system. The first instance of the public being made aware of the immigration enforcement policy seems to have been at the November Board of Ed meeting. After this, rumors and misinformation spread like wildfire, and worst of all, it has created a fear amongst Hispanic families in sending their children to school. So much of this could have been prevented with a simple email sent to families ahead of time explaining that the policy was required by the state and giving some kind of a reassurance to families that they would be safe sending their children to school. What is currently being done to support immigrant families who are worried about sending their children to school? Beyond this lack of communication, I'd like to know if the blueprint is being pushed aside or if you're actively working on figuring out how it will be implemented starting in the 2027 school year. After year, our families and staff going to continue to be in an uproar with potential budget cuts, discussions, and blueprint compliance. It would be great if you could figure out the logistics within the school system and then have something to present and share with parents and staff members that won't create panic. At a minimum, send an email to families with information about why budget cuts are necessary, what you're doing to address the problem, and who to contact to request more funding. Be transparent and hold people accountable. Hire people who are highly qualified to help brainstorm ideas, communicate efficiently, and run our school system so that students are able to succeed. Stop hiding comments on your CCPS Facebook page. Board members, unblock your constituents on Facebook. Don't post partisan support on your individual Board of Ed Facebook pages when this is a nonpartisan position. You serve all your constituents, and advertising your support for the Republican Central Committee, who is a man on the front page of their website who is found liable for sexual abuse and is convicted felon, isn't a good look for people in charge of children's education. On a monthly basis, local teachers post to community Facebook groups asking what they can do for a career besides teaching. In addition to their low pay and how they are treated, a huge stressor for teachers is a lack of communication and feeling unheard. Listen to your teachers and actively request their feedback, not just about the curriculum. Stop holding board meetings at 4 o'clock when there's hundreds of elementary teachers and parents who are just getting out of school. Go into the schools more often to realize you have hired professionals. Also consider what it communicates to teachers and parents when the superintendent gets an extra $55,000 per year plus a car allowance when the last cost of living adjustment for teachers was 3 years ago and salary increases were delayed this year due to budget constraints. And to the community members watching this board meeting, please do your research on the candidates running for the Board of Education and vote for candidates who have the ability to brainstorm, communicate effectively, and who will help all students succeed. Our children deserve leaders who lead by example. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sharon Wilhide.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Wilhide. I am a parent to 2 elementary-aged children in CCPS and a Board of Ed candidate. I wanted to touch on a couple of items that were discussed at last month's meeting related to the budget. First, the elimination of the 15 FTE positions. I understand these positions are going to be naturally processed out due to retirements and resignations, so you're not actively letting educators go. But what are these positions? How is this going to impact our students? There was no discussion of this at the last board meeting, just simply a line on the budget. Let's cut it, easy. I would like to know more, follow up if possible. Second, the discussion on the budget line about devices. There was some discussion of the cost of eliminating one-to-one devices for the different grade bands. However, the only discussion was about cost and how it would impact the bottom line. There was discussion of the effects of eliminating devices being the cost of replacing textbooks and materials. But where was the discussion of what's best for our children? NIH released a very interesting study last year, and I actually have copies for each of you to read. I'll leave it at the back table when I'm done. The study is titled, "The Neuroscience Behind Writing, Handwriting versus Typing, Who Wins the Battle?" It's a summation of research studies on the impact handwriting versus typing actually has on the brain. I know it's long, but I hope you take the time to read it. Basically, it highlights the data from neuroimaging study that show handwriting activates a broader network of brain regions associated with motor control, sensory perception, and higher order cognitive functions. It goes into details about the benefits of handwriting on language development and working memory. The researchers mentioned the impact on younger children while their brains are still developing. I know the devices were necessary during COVID, but we need to focus on what is best for our students today. Today, our children are on screens entirely too much. In classrooms, teachers present on a large screen. Students are expected to complete work on their screens. Students play educational games when their work is finished on screens. In elementary school, they have brain breaks on screens. Then they go home and play on their screens. Just as we are looking at how we teach reading through the science of reading, we need to relook how we use technology in the classroom. We need to use common sense and listen to the experts that say this much screen time is detrimental to our youth. One-to-one devices are being used in our schools as babysitters because educators do not have the support and resources they need to manage their impossible workload. Technology has its place, but it shouldn't be this. It shouldn't simply be a budget line about saving money. Our children deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Catherine Burling.
My name is Catherine Burling. I'm a school librarian with a bachelor's degree in elementary education, a master's degree in school library media, and many additional credentials. I am highly qualified, as are my media colleagues. 3 minutes is not enough time to describe issues CCPS media specialists are juggling right now, including the loss of clerks despite keeping the student devices that we and they handle, potentially losing our positions thanks to a Comar wording issue, unnecessarily required tasks, and a general lack of respect, including public comments by a current Board of Ed member suggesting media specialists are sexualizing students through book choices. It's simply not true. Some folks still picture a school librarian as an old lady with bifocals chained around her cardigan-covered shoulders, sitting in a rocking chair reading Make Way for Ducklings. I concede that I do wear progressive lenses. I am getting a little older, and Make Way for Ducklings will always be one of my favorite picture books. We are not that stereotypical librarian. In fact, today I'm wearing jeans, Converse sneakers, and a sweatshirt that reads, "Never underestimate the power of a girl with a book." Today, we have a few books with us. This evening, several colleagues have brought some schoolwork, books to read and forms to fill out. For 2 years, you've required us to fully read every book we want to add to our collections, which is not a thing librarians do. Consider how long it takes you to thoroughly read one chapter book. Now imagine reading a few hundred in 10 months. Meeting this expectation for each book takes, well, frankly, it's impossible. We were indirectly informed of this expectation through a quote made by the Director of Curriculum and Instruction in a Carroll magazine article. A selection and evaluation policy has always been in place, but not the Appendix J form, which was created without input from media specialists. To add this pre-K book to my collection, I have to fully read it and fill out an Appendix J to prove that it is not sexually explicit. To add this book, A Beginner's Guide to Fishing, I have to read it from cover to cover and fill out an Appendix J form to make sure that it's not sexually explicit. To read this 262-page book from a series by a dedicated, reliable author, I have to fill out the Appendix J form after reading it from cover to cover to make sure that it's not sexually explicit. Reading and filling out forms is not the only thing we do as librarians. We teach classes, troubleshoot technology, create literacy displays, run book fairs, oversee the Battle of the Book program, run daily morning news programs, and collaborate with classroom teachers. Sometimes we attend math or science professional development because we're told that that is the better use of our professional development time. Imagine how many books and forms could be finished or other necessary tasks during that time instead. We are not being compensated for the amount of time we spend outside our contractual day to meet these unrealistic expectations. In fact, I'm one of several media specialists who have dedicated so many years of my personal and professional time to CCPS that I don't qualify for the small pay increase other employees will be receiving this month. Please consider this speech another invitation to Central Office and Board of Ed staff to join us in a conversation to revisit this policy. I will close this evening with this quote.
Yes.
The most important asset of any library goes home at night, the library staff.
Thank you. Okay, and at this time, I need to see if Isaac Marble is here. Okay, no. So that ends our public speakers for the evening.
Thank you, Dr. Dorsey. Next, we will move to employee groups.
Good afternoon, Superintendent McCabe and board members. First of all, I do want to thank you all for commenting on CASE and CCA's local lobby night. The members who were there were very happy to meet with you and happy to get a chance to talk to you about what our daily life is like. Recently, there's been a lot of talk about technology and education. And don't worry, I'm not here to debate the pros and cons of technology in the classroom. Instead, since CCA and CASE will host our annual free reading event next Saturday, March 21st, I thought I would talk something a little more timeless, reading. I come from a family of readers. There were at least 2 newspapers delivered to our house every day, the local paper and the Wall Street Journal. Monthly magazines covering interests from Pennsylvania Game News, which followed the exploits of Pennsylvania game wardens, to National Geographic and Life, which sparked my love of photography, to Reader's Digest, which sparked my vocabulary every month, to increase my wood power, to Mad Magazine, which sparked my love of spies. Books on any and every topic, fiction, nonfiction, medical, religious, gardening, the full set of Encyclopedia Britannica. If we wanted to know something, the answer was in a book or other printed material. If I could not find the answer in our house, my mom would have me pedal my banana seat swing to the Denton Public Library, and the librarian, Miss Stevens, would point me in the right direction while also pointing out a book or 2 that she thought I might like. Looking back, I realized that it was having such immediate access to printed material, a mom who was willing to unplug my Atari, some of the younger people can look it up, and a librarian who knew my name. That was a real privilege that not every kid has. Research consistently shows that reading ability is one of the strongest indicators of a child's academic success. Jessica Logan, a member of the Ohio State Crane Center for Early Childhood Research and Policy, studied how many words children hear from birth to age 5, depending on how often they are read to. Her findings are striking. A child who is read to occasionally, about every other month, 1 book, hears just a few thousand words from birth to fifth birthday. If you read once or twice, they hear more than 60,000 books in that 5-year span. If you read to a child 3 or 5 times a week, that jumps to about 170,000 words in that 5-year period. Daily, it's nearly 300,000 words. And if a child hears 5 books a day, and by the way, these are board books and picture books, so 5 books isn't unreasonable, that exposure reaches to over 1.4 million words from birth to the 5th birthday. These numbers remind us that something as simple as reading a book with a child can have a profound impact on their future success. It gives us an opportunity to pause and reflect on our own homes and routines. Are we making time for reading in our children's lives? Are books, magazines, and even comics easy to access? Are we modeling that reading matters? Do our children see us reading printed material? Do the children see us using a dedicated e-reader versus our cell phone? If the 5 days of the outdoor school program is the only time children are going tech-free, then shame on us as adults. Literacy shouldn't begin in classrooms. It begins in living rooms. It begins with books on shelves, bedtime stories, and adults who make reading a daily habit with the children in their lives. It begins with regular trips to the public library. That's one of the reasons that CCA and CASE are proud to host the annual Read Across Maryland next Saturday, March 21st, at the Career Tech Center from 9 to noon. CCA and CASE have been hosting this reading event for almost 25 years. Each year, Penguin Random House donates about 500 books, and we also purchase books. Conservatively, CCA and CASE have given away about 20,000 books to the children of Carroll County. We hope to see many families from our community there because sometimes the most powerful educational tool isn't a new piece of technology. It's simply a book and an adult willing to read it with a child. Today marks 555 days since the educators in the CCA bargaining unit have received a salary increase. How does that relate to reading? Because the educators, a lot of whom are back here, they're going to show up to Read Across Maryland on March 21st, and they're doing so free. They're volunteering their time because reading is that important, even though they have not received a salary increase since August 31st of 2024. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent McCabe and members of the Board of Education. I'm Cindy Porter, a veteran special education paraprofessional in my 27th year in Carroll County Public Schools, and I'm also the president of CASE, representing clericals and assistants working in our school system. CASE is excited to partner with CCEA on March 21st for Read Across Maryland. This is an opportunity to show children in our county how important reading is to us as adults and how important it is for them as well. We all know that parents are their children's first teachers before they ever enter a classroom. From learning how to speak to how to treat people and handle frustration from the examples we set as parents. There is so much statistical data about the positive impact of reading, especially beginning with parents reading to their little ones at home. But nowadays, reading before and during school years has been in stiff competition with screen time. We have all seen toddlers navigating their parents' cell phones and tablets with ease in public, and many of us have even witnessed adults sitting across the table from each other at dinner engrossed in their phones instead of having meaningful conversations with each other. If you have not had the opportunity to read The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, I can't recommend the book enough. The book details the vast effects of increased screen time by children and how those effects impact their lives as young adults and beyond, showing a dramatic change since 2012. In a recent interview on The Daily Show, Jonathan Haidt said that since his book came out in 2024, he has realized that he grossly underestimated the damage that is being done due to increased screen time, with more data about the cognitive deficits and the inability to pay attention, especially because of short videos that children watch, impairing the ability of their brains to function as they should. Another important piece of information gleaned from the studies he references is that test scores have been going down, as well as IQ scores around the world since 2012 because of this. Education support professionals, teachers, and other staff in our schools deal with the ramifications of this increased screen time every day, even with our youngest learners, and the impacts are felt by all. 26 years ago, when I began my career as an education support professional, many in our communities thought ESPs just helped out in classrooms and performed routine tasks in our offices, with assistants just earning some extra money for their households. Those of us in our professions today know that the scope of our positions is worlds beyond that, and that these positions truly are professions because of the skills necessary to deal with the intensely increased academic, behavioral, and social emotional demands of many of the students we work with. And many of us today are trying to support ourselves on what we earn in these professions. During last year's budget conversations, we learned that Carroll County became a wealthier county according to statewide data. This year, we've learned that our county is going to be considered an aging-in-place county because of the elder population in our county, accounting for around 30% of our county's population. While many will just blame Blueprint for the budgetary woes of our school system and others across the state, the changing face of education and the number of skilled educators it takes to handle the vast needs of the students coming through our doors is a critical component in those budgetary discussions, because all educators and staff need to be compensated fairly. There are no easy decisions, but decisions and choices that are made now and in the future will show what we value as a county. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public participation. Next, we'll move to item 6 on our agenda, action items. May I have a motion to approve the award of bids?
So moved.
So moved by Dr. Dorsey.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Battaglia. Is there any discussion? Or I'm sorry, I'll turn it over to Dr. McCabe.
Tonight, there are 3 items on our award of bids. The first is rental of copiers. This is the annual contract for the rental, installation, and servicing of our copy machines across the system. Next, furnish and install steamers. The purchase and installation of food steamers in 2 of our schools. These are funded by the food services budget. And lastly, the annual contract for our Power School software applications. This is the annual contract for all of our applications across the Power School platform, which includes almost all of the major systems in our school system, including instructional and operational parts of the organization.
Any questions? Any questions from colleagues? Dr. Malvo?
Yeah, I have one question. In terms of I'll wait for you to get to the mic. Here. In terms of the copiers, for the long term, and I noticed that they're rented for a 3-year period, is rental usually the approach in renting copiers more financially beneficial for the long term?
Yeah, we think so. We've tried both over time. It's not just the rental, it's also the ongoing service as needed in almost real-time responsiveness. So it's kind of a rental and a maintenance service contract, both.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? I just had a question about the dollar figure. I didn't see a dollar figure in that first line. What the amount is that we're authorizing?
I don't have that, Mr. Whistler. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You can either follow up and provide it, or
Yeah, if you could just send us an email and let us know what the
we'll do
cost
that.
is. All right. Any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next on our agenda, item 6B, may I have a motion to approve student appointments to the Carroll County Career and Technical Education Advisory Council? So moved by Dr. Dorsey,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Battaglia. Dr. McCabe.
Students are a part of the Career and Tech Advisory Council. Each high school has a student representative appointed each year. I bring the following students to you for appointment for this coming year. First, Angelo Rossi from Century High School in the program of welding. Meredith Mahan from Francis Scott Key High School in the culinary program. Cooper Guidell from Liberty High School in the Cisco program. Estella Gover, Manchester Valley High School in the welding program. Levi Phelps, South Carroll High School in the Applied Mechanical Engineering program. Sharina Jasser, Westminster High School in the culinary program. And finally, Aubrey Zepp, Winters Mill High School for cosmetology.
Thank you. Any questions from colleagues? Yes, Ms. Battaglia.
The one question I had was, it looks like most of these students are seniors. Once they graduate, they are completely removed from the school system. So my question is, are we trying to look at juniors to fill these instead? To me, I think it's just something that would be more beneficial. They would, they're still integrated in the school system, they're still involved in the school system. So wouldn't it make more sense to have juniors instead of seniors?
We do both, but what happens is that it's to have the understanding of the program, so they're coming in now to have that understanding through the process. So juniors, when they're just coming in, they don't have the whole understanding of the program. And so what we do is we really use their expertise and their knowledge, as you know, coming to those meetings to kind of guide some of the conversations to improve the programs, if that makes sense.
All right. Yeah, I think that's just one thing I just kind of worry about a little bit. I mean, I know some of these, like, the programs are over with now. These students have finished their completer. All right. Yep. Just wondering.
Yep.
Thanks.
I could take that back to Mr. Eccles
Okay.
and share the comment, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions from colleagues? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, may I have a motion to approve personnel action items? So moved by Dr. Dorsey, seconded by Dr. Malvo. Dr. McCabe.
For the monthly personnel action items, there are 2 broken contracts, 2 leaves of absence, and 1 increase in FTE.
Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Next, item 6D. May I have a motion to approve school bus contractor name change? So moved by Ms. Zimmer,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Battaglia. Dr. McCabe.
One of our existing school bus contractors has changed the name of his business. I bring this action to you for approval so that you may officially recognize that name change.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Next, may I have a motion to approve a transfer of school bus contracts? So moved by Dr. Malvo,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Battaglia. Dr. McCabe.
For this item, I seek approval to transfer one bus route. This transfer is among family members in one of our longtime contractor families.
Thank you. Any questions from colleagues? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next, may I have a motion to approve deed of property transfer between the Board of Education of Carroll County and the Board of Commissioners of Carroll County? So moved by Dr. Dorsey. Second by Ms. Zimmer. Dr. McCabe.
This action item will finalize a community project on which we have been a partner for many years. This is the formal approval of the deed to effect the transfer from the board to the Carroll County government to support the addition being constructed at the Carroll County Youth Services Bureau.
Thank you. Any questions from colleagues? Dr. Malvo.
Just one question. The cover page has the address as 59 Kate Wagner Road in Westminster, and the deed is a different address at 1413 Washington Road. Is that purposeful?
One's the Youth Service Bureau address, the other's the present address for the parcel at Robert Moten Elementary School.
Okay, just making sure they didn't have to be
Yeah.
the same address.
Correct. We're going to transfer a little bit less than an acre to the county from our address to that address.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. And finally, may I have a motion to approve appointments? So moved by Dr. Dorsey. Second by Ms. Zimmer. Dr. McCabe.
This evening, I have one recommendation for appointment. We are sad that Mrs. Gramata has made the decision to retire on July 1st from Director of Middle Schools. But we have conducted a search for our new Director of Middle Schools, and tonight I would like to recommend John DePaula, retired middle school principal from Howard County Public Schools, to our Director of Middle Schools.
Thank you, Dr. McCabe. Any questions or comments? Yes, Ms. Battaglia, you're recognized.
I just want to say, Ms. Gramata, thank you for everything you have done because, and I will get a little upset about this because when I first met you and you were teaching over at West Middle, and I was very impressed with the programs that you offered to students, the support you had for the students and for the community there. And I can't thank you enough for everything that you have done for the middle school students in our community, as well as other middle schools at North Carroll with my kids, and then overseeing the middle schools from the entire county. So I appreciate everything you have done. I'm not letting you leave, no. No.
And again, Ms. Gramata, we really appreciate your leadership. I've seen you in action a lot, especially with the Sykesville Middle and other, additions we were working on. Your leadership's been incredible. We really appreciate you. And you will be sorely missed, and we wish you the very best.
And I think when we were recognizing your years of service last year, I took a deep breath because I thought then it was like retirement. And it's like, no, this is just recognizing her for her years of service. And I thought we would have many more years beyond that. So again, it's been a pleasure, and thank you so very much. I mean, we're certainly going to miss you. You're very skilled and very student-centered, and, you just look out for your program. So again, we certainly appreciate all you've done and wish you the very best. Yeah.
We're going to blame it on the grandkids, and that's a very good reason to retire. Let me tell you, a very good reason to retire. So any other questions or comments from colleagues? Hearing none, I call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Next, we will move on to item 7 in our agenda, the new state literacy policy. Dr. McCabe.
MSDE has placed a tremendous focus on improving literacy. They are adopting a comprehensive literacy policy, which eventually will span both elementary and secondary grade levels. Their initial focus has been on grades pre-K through 3. Mr. Shockney will provide you with an overview of the MSDE policy and share details of our efforts in implementing the state's policy. We welcome your questions and any discussion. Mr. Shockney?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. McCabe. Good evening again, board members. Happy to be back again to speak a little bit more in depth on the comprehensive pre-K-3 literacy policy overview. And again, this is a policy implemented by MSDE. The intent today is to kind of give a big overview, big picture overview, but May, maybe June, we'll see. I'd like to have the team back and do a little bit more of a detailed presentation on the implementation and the changes that, the additional changes that will come. But I'm going to give an overview today because there's a lot of information here, and I think it's real important, obviously, that we inform you, but as well as our community, because there's going to be a lot of information for parents here. This is not the only forum or method in which we're going to communicate and share this information to families. That's going to begin shortly and continue throughout the summer and throughout next year as well, too. But a little presentation discussion, and then as always, we want to inform all of our stakeholders and making sure that we're making good informed decisions as we go. This has a direct connection to Pillar 1 of your strategic plan on improving academic achievement. A lot of this work focuses on student achievement by grade 3, something that's been a priority in your strategic plan for some time. So a little background on the state literacy policy. This is work that began in '24. It was developed at the state level in response to declining statewide performance in reading. The intent is to ensure that every student statewide receives equitable, effective, and evidence-based reading instruction. It prioritizes the core components of literacy. Those 5 components are up there. The team earlier today spoke of these core components being something that we teach now. And under Dr. McCabe's leadership, both as superintendent and in her previous roles, has been something that we have utilized consistently in CCPS. And honestly, that's a direct result of our achievement. We have always, in recent years, we've focused explicitly on the instruction, phonemic awareness, and phonics, as well as the other components of literacy instruction. But the other intent of this is to make sure that parents and guardians are well informed. Again, this is a statewide policy that all LEAs shall follow. You'll see many of these things in this policy we have already done and done consistently for some time. So current literacy instruction in CCPS, this is something that we do well. In a moment, I'll show some data on our student achievement data. We do relatively well comparatively to other districts across the state. But this is something that's always has been a priority to us and will continue to be. It's the core of what we do. So, like as I said earlier, proficiency by grade 3 has been a strategy or an objective on our strategic plan. We have focused on those core competency skills. We've also utilized the Foundations program to explicitly teach those phonics skills in those early grades through grade 3. We talked about it earlier today. We're integrating the Benchmark Advanced program, which is very much aligned with the science of reading, which is the core premise or foundation to the state's literacy policy. What we do is based on evidence, is based on science, is based on data. We've actively participated in any and all professional learnings that opportunities that have been offered by the state. We've also continued to engage in our own professional learning around the science of reading. We have been working for many years now to realign our system of interventions or our multi-tiered system of support. I also refer to that as systems of support because it's multiple things coming together to support our students. A big component to the literacy policy is universal screeners. We have utilized universal screeners throughout in CCPS for the past several years. And again, like I said, we're committed to continuous improvement, and we will continue to do so. So just some data points that I've previously shared. None of this is new information. It's information based upon our last year MCAP data. CCPS ranks 3rd in the state for grade 3 proficiency, and then 2nd overall for all assessed levels in ELA. And as I said before, we utilize universal screeners. This is the same chart you've seen before. I just pulled it out of the data chart from last year. And again, this is the same chart that you've seen previously, which breaks down our grade level and our achievement, our proficiency levels by grade level on the MCAP. All right, so changes coming in CCPS as a result of the MSDE pre-K to 3 comprehensive literacy policy. So we're going to be providing additional parent-guardian communication and meetings with families throughout the course of the school year. The conversation and that data that we share, we've already shared as part of our achievement on our screeners and our other local assessments that we utilize. But also, if a student scores at a certain level on the screeners and identifies that might be a student at risk of reading difficulties, we've always intervened previously and provided supports. But now we're going to be developing something called a Student Reading Improvement Plan, also referred to as a SRIP. Which is a little difficult acronym to say at times. But based upon student achievement on those screeners 3 times a year, students who struggle on those screeners will receive a SRIP. That's something that's new. Intervention is not new to us. Communicating with families that we have a concern about how a student is doing is not new to us. But we will be developing a student student reading improvement plan, or a SRIP, in conjunction with the student's family, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that SRIP's going to look like as we go. As we've always done, we're going to provide reading intervention, but we're going to be providing expanded reading intervention. There will be additional students or more students receiving intervention under the state's policy than we've done previously, which isn't a bad thing, but it comes at a challenge as well too, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. The biggest change is going to relate to retention procedures, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but there is a requirement for retention with parental consent, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. And that's the big thing I really want to be clear with families on, because I don't want to create any confusion or any additional anxiety beyond what I think at times the policy does. But again, grounded in good spirit, but it has some challenges, and I'll get to those as we work through it. So our SRIP, or our Student Reading Improvement Plan, developed no later than 30 days after reading difficulty identified as by the screener. Those cut scores have not yet been determined as to what that's going to be yet on our screeners. But again, if a student scores at a certain level, we will develop a reading improvement plan. It'll be created by the teacher, principal, or designee, and other pertinent school staff in partnership with the student's parents and guardians. That's important. It's going to describe the evidence-based intervention that we're going to provide to the student. Again, intervention isn't new to us. This isn't new to us, but we're just going to be documenting it in a little different way, and we'll have an expanded number of students. The SRIP will also include the frequency or intensity of the intervention, how often will it happen, for how long will it happen, those kinds of things. It'll be reviewed and updated annually with the parents and guardians if the student continues to demonstrate difficulty on those screeners. And then again, remain in place until the student's met the goals within the plan or is no longer determined as having difficulty in reading by those screeners. Here is the difficult part with this. So, as part of the state's policy, again, this is not our policy, this is part of the state's policy, by grade 3, students must demonstrate adequate reading proficiency on the MSD adopted state English Language Arts, or ELA, assessment to be promoted to grade 4. That assessment is currently the MCAP assessment. Students will have to score at a certain level in order to be promoted to grade 4. And that's very different than our current practices. Very different. Or score at or above the required performance level on an MSD-approved reassessment and have triangulated data from valid and reliable multiple assessment measures. Now, that's a little bit of a mouthful right there. So one of those two things have to be met. And I'm going to come back to these a little bit more in a moment. There's also an opportunity for good cause exemptions. Some students may be exempt from the retention requirement. That would be some students with disabilities whose individualized education programs, or IEPs, identifies that they participate in the Maryland Alternate Education Framework. That might be one reason for a good cause exemption. Another would be students who have received less than 2 years of, in a sense, ESOL services may be exempt from the retention requirement. And then students with disabilities or 504 plans, but I will tell you typically it is our students with our disabilities that receive specially designed instruction that have had 2 years of intensive reading intervention may be exempt. Now there's a lot to this that's yet to be defined by MSDE, and we anxiously await some definitions like what is intensive reading intervention, because that could be interpreted very differently. Or any other student that may have been retained previously in kindergarten first or second or third grade. So if for some reason a student may have been retained in either K or first grade, which I will tell you, we do very few retentions, but when we do them, it's in conjunction with the family and it's typically at an early grade level. So if a student, let's say, for example, in the current structure, doesn't meet the proficiency standard on the MCAP assessment at the end of grade 3, and doesn't receive a good cause exemption or doesn't qualify under reassessment because we still don't even know what reassessment may look like. That's one of those definitions we're waiting for. Parents and guardians may consent to the designation of retention in third grade or choose promotion and consent to their child participating in supplemental reading support program or interventions. So at the end of the day, this is the one thing that I want all families listening to understand. Parents have the final say. That's very important on this, because if you look at our proficiency in grade 3, it's roughly 65%. So there's roughly 35% as it stands, and we're second in the third in the state in third grade for this. So 35% of our students aren't meeting the MCAP standard. That's a large group of students. Now, we think that maybe once we have greater information and guidance from the state on what this reassessment may look like, or triangulation of other existing data and what that may look like, that may remove. But there could be a large number of students eligible for retention under this the state's policy, both in Carroll and beyond. So that's important. But the main thing I want families to realize is none of this will be done without parental consent. I also fully envision that we are going to have greater information and clarity in the future than what we do now. At the end of this presentation, there is a link to the state's draft guidance. I would encourage folks to go in there, take a look at that. We are actively engaging with MSDE. They're providing us feedback. There's lots of things being developed. We got some critical information just this past week on information, but there's a lot to be determined and a lot of unknowns. But at the end of the day, the decision around retention itself will be in the hands of the parent or guardian. So we have a work group in CCPS working on this, unpacking the policy. They've been engaging in work. It's a representative group of lots of different people from across our system. They've done an analysis of what we're currently doing in CCPS. They've compared what we need to do to come into compliance with the state's policy. We're taking a very close look at our schedules, and that's one of those themes that connected to the earlier presentation. There is only a finite amount of time during the student day, so we have to be maximizing every minute of that time. So we're really taking a look at our structures around scheduling. What can we do differently with our schedules? What greater clarity can we provide, or structures can we put in place from us here at Central Office that would help schools be able to implement this work? A big component of this is expanded intervention, which on its surface is a great thing. However, we're doing it with the same amount of staff. And that's a bit of a challenge, to say the least. So we have to get creative with what we have, and we have to look at how we are using our time currently, and we may have to shift some things, or we may have to do some things differently than what we've done in the past. But our schedule review is a big component of this. We are still very much, though, going to be focused on literacy instruction. We're inventorying our interventions. A big component of the state's reading policy, as well as our work, is around high quality instructional materials. All the materials that we need, that we are going to use, whether they're a core instructional material, a screener, or any other tool that we're using, or an intervention, for example, need to be identified as a high quality instructional material. The state is doing a lot of vetting for us to tell us if it does meet criteria or not, and that's been a help. But as I get into some challenges here, I'll talk a little bit more about that. We're building a digital SHRIP, so we'll be dealing with less papers, but as our staff is developing those plans, they'll be in a digital format, so it's easy to share with families, easy to share with staff. We're working on communication tools because, again, there's a lot of information we know now, but there's a lot of information that we don't know that we expect to get into the near future. We need to make sure that we're communicating clearly and often to our schools and to our families and to our students as well, too. And then definitely when it comes with this, there's going to be additional professional learning and support for our staff that's going to need to be done. So the rough timeline, now through summer, the work group's going to continue to work. We're going to communicate with staff. We're going to communicate with families as we go. We're going to build and implement professional learning. So that's kind of just in the next couple of months. Next year, a bit of a phased approach to this. So we're going to implement the plans next year, okay? So we have our screeners. We're going to be implementing plans based on achievement on those screeners, and then those expanded interventions. The retention component does not kick in until the 27-28 school year. So this is going to be something that we're going to make sure that we very clearly communicate with our families as we go. So next year, we're going to implement the plans and expanded interventions, and then the retention procedures will be implemented the following year. So like I said, the work group will continue to work. We'll come back with a detailed presentation, hopefully in May. Might be June, but I think May, maybe. We'll see. We know that we're going to have to make revisions to the administrative regulations for board policy, IKE, which defines our placement, promotion, intervention, retention, and acceleration plans. And then coupled with this, MSD is also developing an adolescent literacy policy where I think some of the central themes that we see in pre-K to 3, we will also see in grades 4 through 12, including the integration of universal screeners beyond the elementary school. So we'll stay tuned for that because that policy is still in its draft form, but the pre-K to 3 piece is definitely in its implementation phase. So challenges. When we talk about retention of students based upon an assessment, creates lots of anxiety for teachers, for families, and for kids. So we have to be mindful of this. And, what we want to focus in on is the teaching and learning that happens every day. When we focus on good teaching, when our kids work hard in the classroom, they're going to do okay on those assessments. But we don't want to create anxiety and don't create a high stakes, assessment that just stresses our students and our staff out. Because that's not the point of an assessment. It's a measure of learning and a measure for learning. Retention has potential harmful effects, especially in grade 3. We don't do a lot of retentions in grade 3. There are a lot of social emotional factors that come into play if a student is retained. That's why the retentions that we have done in the past typically happen in those kindergarten or first grade levels. There's also a big gap when state assessment data is received and when retention decisions are made. We will have students leaving school potentially not knowing if they're going to be promoted to grade 4 or not. Because do we have the data in? Have we had an opportunity to unpack it? For those students who don't do well on the state assessment, hopefully in the near future, we'll have a better idea about what that second option is. What's the reassessment? How often can we give the reassessment? What's it going to be? What scores? This triangulation of data, what points are we triangulating? Those things have not been defined yet. So, that is a bit of a challenge as we go. But the timing of when we receive state assessment data is going to be integral in this, because we, again, may have students leaving, and that's not our practice. When we issue those grade 4 report cards, or quarter 4, report cards, it identifies if a student's been promoted or not. So that's going to be potentially an unknown. The list of MSDE approved interventions, high quality instructional materials, and reassessments have not been released by MSDE yet. We got a big piece of some information this past week, which is good, but there's lots of other information. Their timeline for those delivering those items is during the 25-26 school year. So that's this year, but we can't wait. We've been engaged in this work, and we will continue to be engaged in this work, and we just can't wait any longer. The other one is the workload for staff. We are implementing a reading improvement plan. We're going to take a collaborative approach, but that plan's going to need to be developed. It's going to need to be implemented. It's going to need to be monitored. It's going to need to be revised. That is going to take work from staff. There is no expanded funding for this work. There's nothing extra that's part of this. So, we're going to have to look carefully and closely at what we're doing, how we're doing it, that time management piece within the course of the instructional block for ELA. We know that there has to be more time that we block out for interventions. Now, again, not that we're not doing interventions now, we're doing great interventions, but we do anticipate that we're going to have more students participating in interventions. We have to make sure that if a student's getting an intervention, it doesn't come at the cost of missing that core instruction, because then that just creates a cycle and a problem where you can't get out of. We just spin our wheels. So we have to be very strategic about that. This could have anticipated referrals to special education. We always monitor very carefully the number of students identified as receiving special education services and the areas in which, in those disability categories, it's something that we look very closely at. We could have an increase because one of those opportunities for a good cause exemption is if a student's been receiving special education services. Will we see an influx in referrals by families or schools even to special education? And then the other piece is what I call competing blueprint interests. We've been working very hard to preserve and to identify kind of what are the foundational resources that a school needs to function. And we're working very carefully and we're working hard to preserve those resources that we have. But at the same time, this is an expanded, this is going to be more work, and it's going to be expanded, but it doesn't come at any additional resource. So that oftentimes competes with blueprint interest and priorities, as well as our own local priorities and what we want to be able to do. So with that said, there's two resources here. The first link is a link to the pre-K literacy policy. Again, that is in implementation phase, and then the adolescent literacy policy is in its development phase. But they're both there. I encourage families and anyone of interest that has interest to take a look at that. So with that, I'll pause and open things up for questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shockney. I see Ms. Zimmer has her card up. Ms. Zimmer.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Shockney, for the presentation. The early childhood literacy is near and dear to me. I shared last year that this affected my household personally. So I just have a couple questions, and what I'm the most concerned about, just based off this initial presentation, is how much extra work we're putting on our staff and on our educators who are already overloaded. So my specific question has to do with the student reading improvement plans. What is MSDE requiring right now of our staff? So how involved is it? How much time do you anticipate it will take to fill out these forms for each student?
So that's the work of the work group right now. They're really taking a look at the roles of our administrators, look at the stakeholders involved around us, our administrators, our reading specialists, our teachers, and obviously our families as well too. So that's one of the things that the committee is doing now, is taking a look at like, how do we do this? Like, who is the, who or what group? It has to be done by a team. It has to be a bit of a team approach in its development. But where is is it best for the reading specialist to initiate something? Is it best for the principal to initiate? Those kinds of things. So it's to be determined on that, but no doubt about it, it's going to have an impact on all of those key stakeholders, including our teachers, our support staff as well too, but our teachers, our reading specialists, and our administrators. Those are the kind of the three roles where we're really focusing on, what does each need to do in a way that we can still reach our goals and provide the instruction that we expect to provide in the classroom at the same time.
And again, I know we're very early in the process now, but you had mentioned that we're going to have to get creative with being able to implement this. Has there been any discussions about a professional corps of volunteers that could help after hours? And I say that because in my family, with my student, we had to implement, Cranberry Station rallied around him, but we also had to put some private things in play as well to get him on track. And I know not all families can afford to do something like that.
Great question. So the state's literacy policy says that the intervention shall be implemented during the student day at no expense to the student. So we would welcome parents and volunteers to come get engaged. And I think we can be strategic with that as we have done now. And there's lots of great programs that happen in schools with volunteers. But the intervention as identified in the SRIP would need to come from school-based staff during the student day.
It's concerning because the feedback that we just received about the new curriculum, and you hear teachers saying there's not enough time, and now it feels a little bit like a pile-on. I know it's not CCPS. I understand this is a state initiative. And I also understand that Dr. Wright has had tremendous success with a program like this previously in another state. So,
Mississippi.
So again, I'm very optimistic. I'm just really concerned and worried about our teachers.
Yeah, I mean, it's theory versus reality. And we've had this discussion many times about other things associated with Blueprint and beyond. The theory of the work is sound. It's great. Who would disagree with more supports for kids? However, the reality of implementation also needs to be a factor in all of this too, because we only have but so many people, and we only have but so much time during the day. So that's why we're taking a look at what we're doing and how we're doing it with our student schedules, and we've got to be able to provide some structures or blocks or time within the day to make this all work. But yeah, by no means, I'm not trying to sugarcoat or dance that. It is going to be a challenge in navigating this. There's no doubt about it.
One thing I just want to add here is that we will continue to do what we've always done in trying to identify students early, especially in kindergarten, who may be a good candidate for retention. So our goal is going to be to have as few students as possible get to third grade and be in this situation at the end of third grade. So we will continue to retain earlier when it's appropriate, and we are also going to continue to provide intervention as early as possible, so that we don't get ourselves in a situation where we've got a lot of students who would qualify for being retained in third grade. Thanks,
Dr. McCabe. Those best practices that we've consistently utilized, we will continue to utilize. We're not going to abandon that work to meet the minimums of compliance. Mm-hmm. Dr. McCabe could not have said it any better. It is all about early intervention. If we can head off a problem or a challenge when it's small, and redress it, obviously that's a lot better than letting it compound or grow. So yes, by all means, we intervene as early as in our pre-K classrooms as needed. And I think of all the other creative things that we do in the birth through kindergarten world for eligible students with disabilities. It's tremendous work that has happened, and all that good work will continue to happen as well.
And we have good relationships with our literacy council as well, so we'll see if they can get involved with us and be helpful in any way.
Yeah, but we welcome those supports from our from our partners.
Dr. Dorsey?
Well, I was just going to say that ELA teachers historically have had a lot of work to do. I mean, I can remember when we would talk about, trying to departmentalize, some used to think it would be easier, teaching the math rather than the ELA, although we're hearing now with all of the math assessments and benchmarking that they're doing in that area as well, it's really become, quite cumbersome, but it's always been a challenge with ELA teachers. Now, did you say, I heard you say 3 times a year.
Yep.
Was that in relation to the SRIPs?
The screeners. So we
Oh, the
we're going to be we do that now, and we will
Okay.
continue to screen students 3 times a year. But based upon student achievement on those screeners, if a student is flagged based upon their performance on those screeners, that's what would initiate the development of a SRIP. So we would then develop a student reading plan. I think there's a lot of information because, a student could have a bad day one day. And I'd hate to put, a lot of weight on a singular assessment. So, I hope we have some additional information on, on re-administering the screener, being reasonable. If a student is just feeling bad one day and is not on their best, but made it into school, we're thankful for that. But be reasonable for giving that student a second opportunity on the screener. So, I hope there, as this goes and the state learns, that there'll be continued modifications or changes based upon how this is going. And then I hope that they solicit feedback or continue to solicit feedback, but then take actionable steps because it is going to be a lot of work as we move forward.
And whenever we bring up just the idea of retention, I mean, I was glad to see that word anxiety there, because even as a teacher, I was very anxious when it was time to, look at the students and how they were progressing and, looking at being promoted or not. But again, I'll just say it this way. It's better to certainly put the interventions in place and to try to work with the student and get the student up to par, because we've seen over the years, there's a lot of research against retention, and we've certainly seen over the years that even if kids are behind, let's say at point A, a lot of times as they're continuing their childhood journeys, they're able to move forward a bit and get level with other students, their peer group.
Yeah, and let's not forget our students that struggle are often our hardest working students. They're sometimes our students struggle for poor choices. But a large majority of the time, our kids that struggle are working really, really hard to get the grades that they receive, and just may not be at that standard. So there has to be, I would hope, also some individualization, because one size fits all does not fit all. But again, I think there has to be recognition of the hard work. I'm hoping that second bullet will be further defined in the very near future for us. That's not something we can define. That's something MSD would need to do for us, which there could be some greater flexibility around that if that proficiency level in the MCAP isn't achieved by that assessment.
So we're hoping that you'll have that piece of information
I hope
for your
soon,
next
Dr. Dorsey.
presentation.
We need it soon as we're actively engaged in this work. We know that the retention component's not going to kick in until another school year, but it would be helpful to have that information up front so we can make informed decisions as early as possible in the planning. Like, there's great people doing this work in that work group who know a heck of a lot about literacy and literacy instruction. And, if we can get some of that answered sooner than later, that would be great.
And we've always talked about getting test results back as soon as possible, and sometimes it's so late in the school year. And I'd hate to think of a kid going home not knowing what his placement was going to be for the next year.
And this is the last year of the MCAP. There will be a different assessment beyond this year. So, we don't know what that assessment will be yet or what it will look like, but we've gone through iterations of state assessments, and it takes some time for that range finding to happen and that scoring to happen. So in the first year of this assessment, we'll also be, making some pretty big decisions on whether or not students are promoted between 3rd and 4th grade. And again, the parent consents or doesn't consent to the recommendation. We're required to make the recommendation if the student doesn't meet the criteria, but the parent consents to it or not.
Dr. Malva.
Yeah, I really appreciate the good cause exemption and, in terms of students with disabilities, a son who has, his own learning disabilities. And what I'm just wondering is, in terms of IEPs, will these have to be altered or assessed differently? Is this going to be not only the impact on teachers, of course, who are going to have to work through this and their workload, but also counselors and so forth? Are they going to have to revisit the IEPs and,
In theory, no, Dr. Malvo, but that could change. The IEP is still the document that it is. It identifies the services, the supports, all those accommodations that a student receives. If a student receives services in the area of reading, for example, that's beyond the reading improvement plan. So there's a chance that maybe a student has an IEP and their services are in the area of mathematics, and they may have a SRIP. But when it comes to the intensity of support, an IEP is more intensive of a support than the SRIP.
Any other comments from colleagues? Yeah, I just wanted to say I highlighted a bunch of issues which, of course, my colleagues addressed and also you had on your challenges slide. But look, I understand the intent, but this is yet again another state-directed mandate that increases workload on our educators that will just, if some of the things you predict happen, I mean, if we have a lot of people enroll in special needs programs, we have a significant increase in special needs students, that will significantly affect the placement of our educators, especially at the elementary level. We just met with APA and we determined, the ideal setting of what our elementary schools should look like. This needs to be in that. But we're getting a lot of requirements levied on our educators and our school system, a lot of local control being just taken away. You shall do this, you shall do that. And it could come at a great cost. Teacher burnout, it's just another one, here we go. But I think the key to this is, partnering with our parents, getting them involved in the process. And also, I'd like to see if we can perhaps use appropriately AI to help identify these kids, complete these SRIPs, but anything we can do to lighten the load on our educators. Again, AI is not gospel, but it's a guide. But anything we can do to incorporate into our workflows, our procedures, to make the burden light and easy on our educators. Because I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of folks that don't meet the MCAP threshold. And I just foresee a lot of burdens on our teachers to do that reassessment, to do whether or not, they should qualify for, yes, they didn't do well in the MCAP, they had a bad test day, but I just foresee this to be a huge burden on our educators. And again, no flexibility at the local level. So, but thank you for the presentation. It really opens us up to what may be ahead. Next on our agenda, the final topic is 7B, consideration of textbook and instructional materials. Dr. McCabe.
We bring for discussion textbooks and materials being recommended for the 2026-27 school year. As a reminder of the annual process, these items were introduced to the CCPS Curriculum Council at their March 6th meeting to begin their review. Review by members of the council includes the opportunity to provide feedback and questions from the curriculum department staff members in April. Also, all materials are available to the public for review and feedback between now and May. The Curriculum Council will have their final vote on these materials in May, and those recommendations will return to the board for action at your June business meeting.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from colleagues? Okay, again, just to reiterate, we typically don't have a lot of parents come in and review these materials year after year, but please come and review them. get these materials online, look at them online, because we're looking for your feedback on whether or not you think these are appropriate for our children. But again, anything else? All right. Well, with that, I think we will move on to unfinished business. I have a couple of announcements. One, Dr. McCabe reminded me to wish good luck to our Manval varsity girls basketball team in their 2A state final tomorrow. We're all pulling for you, and we'd love to see you bring that championship back here to Carroll County.
So where's the game tomorrow?
I'm not sure where the game is. UMBC. So, but yeah, it'd be nice to see the Carroll County bring home another trophy. It's great, and we're so proud of all of our sports teams, and all of the coaches, and all of the trainers, and everyone that makes that happen, and our sports boosters, our just everything that goes into that. We do have a new date for our April board meeting. That will occur 4 p.m. Wednesday, April 15th, the third Wednesday in April. We will meet with public participation in the boardroom at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, April 15th at 125 North Court Street in Westminster. And 1 p.m. Thursday, April 23rd, my colleagues and I will have a joint meeting with the Board of County Commissioners in the Reagan Room across the street at the county office building at 225 North Center Street in Westminster. All right, and with that, may I have a motion to adjourn? So moved by Dr. Dorsey. Second by Ms. Battaglia.
And everyone be safe. There's storms in the area.
Yeah, be safe. All right. Without objection, we are adjourned.